The concept of the alpha male is universally recognized and easily understood. He represents the pinnacle of traditional hierarchical structure, the sovereign figure positioned at the apex of social order. This individual serves as the decision-making authority whom others instinctively look toward when guidance becomes necessary. His presence is unmistakable, his influence undeniable, and his command absolute. The metaphorical framework proves remarkably apt. Alpha males function as monarchs, presiding over their domains. They govern territories, occupy positions of supreme authority, and bear the symbolic markers of their status. The entire conceptual architecture functions coherently within this paradigm. However, when we introduce the sigma male into this framework, conventional categorization becomes problematic. He resists easy placement within established royal hierarchies. He demonstrates no interest in competing for positions of formal authority. He isn't an heir apparent waiting for succession opportunities, nor is he a loyal vassal pledging allegiance to existing power structures. He represents something fundamentally different from these recognizable archetypes. By the conclusion of this exploration, you'll possess complete clarity regarding this alternative category. Because once this distinction becomes visible, the entire social dynamic resolves into perfect focus, permanently transforming your understanding of hierarchical relationships. What follows are 8 fundamental truths that definitively establish what the Sigma archetype actually represents. Neither sovereign nor subordinate, but something considerably more formidable. And this understanding begins with the following observation. The alpha pursues the crown. The sigma pursues autonomy. Consider what a crown genuinely symbolizes beyond its material form. It transcends mere metalwork to represent authority itself, public recognition, and the visible emblem declaring someone as the commanding presence. When an alpha individual enters any environment, he requires others to immediately recognize his leadership status. He needs the formal title, the official position, and the explicit acknowledgement. Without these trappings of authority, he becomes indistinguishable from anyone else. The crown constitutes his defining characteristic, the element that transforms him into a king. Understanding this dynamic reveals something crucial. Alpha males don't simply desire the crown, they require it for psychological completeness. Their entire identity architecture is constructed around occupying that position. Remove the throne, and you fundamentally dismantle who they are. They've invested years in ascending to that elevation, defeating competitors, and continuously proving their worthiness. The crown represents the tangible validation that all that sustained effort produced meaningful results. Now observe the Sigma male's perspective on this same crown. He perceives it and immediately recognizes it as a sophisticated restraint system. Because wearing a crown means accepting permanent constraints. You must maintain carefully crafted appearances, participate in ceremonial obligations, deliver public addresses, navigate complex political dynamics, and continuously manage everyone's expectations regarding your conduct. The crown doesn't represent freedom, it's an exquisitely decorated prison cell. And the Sigma male would genuinely prefer any alternative to imprisonment, regardless of how beautifully that imprisonment is presented. This fundamental difference explains why Sigma males deliberately walk away from leadership positions they could readily claim. It's not a question of capability or leadership aptitude. Rather, it's recognition that leadership, as conventionally structured by society, demands sacrifices that exceed its benefits. You gain authority, but surrender autonomy. You gain respect, but forfeit privacy. You gain influence, but lose the capacity to move through the world freely and spontaneously. For the Sigma male, this exchange represents a fundamentally unacceptable bargain. He'd rather exist in freedom without recognition than possess power while trapped by its obligations. Consider this illustrative comparison. The alpha male, resembles a lion confined to a zoo environment. Magnificent in appearance, admired by all observers, everyone travels specifically to witness him. He's the featured attraction, commanding attention, yet he remains fundamentally caged. The Sigma male resembles a wolf roaming wilderness territories. Nobody's observing his movements, nobody's offering admiration, but he possesses complete freedom to travel anywhere his instincts direct him, hunt according to his hunger, rest according to his fatigue, and answer to absolutely no external authority. The alpha male receives the assembled crowd and their attention. The sigma male receives the entire wilderness and its possibilities. And each archetype considers the other's choice to be utterly incomprehensible.
The alpha rules through visibility. The sigma succeeds through invisibility. A monarch's power fundamentally derives from being witnessed. He occupies a throne deliberately elevated above all others in the room. He wears ceremonial garments that announce his status from considerable distance. He conducts official court proceedings publicly, ensuring everyone can observe his authority being exercised. His power is inherently performative. It exists because people see it and collectively acknowledge it. Remove the visibility component, and the power structure dissolves entirely. This explains why alpha males require being positioned at the center of attention. Their influence depends absolutely on everyone knowing who occupies the commanding position. Therefore, they speak with the greatest volume during meetings, claim credit in public forums, and ensure their presence registers unmistakably because an invisible monarch is a powerless monarch. If people cannot witness you ruling, are you genuinely ruling at all? The Sigma male operates according to completely different principles. His power emanates from what remains unseen by others. He's the trusted counselor who whispers strategic advice privately to the king. The tactical planner who designs the battle strategy but doesn't personally lead the military charge. The innovator who creates the decisive weapon that determines the war's outcome but never receives mention in historical records. He influences final outcomes without leaving traceable evidence connecting him to them. And this invisibility is precisely what makes him effective. Because when you operate invisibly, you don't become a target for opposition. Nobody's attempting to overthrow your position. Nobody's challenging your authority. Nobody's scrutinizing your every action, waiting expectantly for you to make mistakes. You can experiment and fail privately, correcting errors before anyone notices they occurred. You can test unconventional ideas without risking your established reputation. You can move through spaces and situations that would never permit your entry if participants understood your actual intentions. It resembles the distinction between a military general and an intelligence operative. The general stands prominently on the battlefield elevation, wearing full uniform, directing troop movements. Everyone knows his precise location, his current activities, and his issued orders. He requires that visibility to command effectively. But the intelligence operative slips undetected behind enemy lines, gathers critical information, disrupts supply networks, and fundamentally alters the war's trajectory without anyone knowing he exists until consequences become irreversible. Both archetypes win wars successfully, but only one receives commemorative monuments built in his honor. And the Sigma male accepts this readily, because monuments transform you into targets. The Alpha commands armies, the Sigma ends wars alone. There's a practical reason monarchs require armies, because kingdoms encompass vast territories. Threats emerge from multiple directions simultaneously. One individual, regardless of skill level, cannot defend an entire territory alone. So the king builds military forces, trains soldiers, establishes command hierarchies, and when warfare arrives, he doesn't personally fight. He directs others to fight on his behalf. This isn't cowardice, it's understanding scale. His power comes from coordinating numerous people toward unified objectives. This represents where the Alpha excels. He's exceptionally skilled at rallying people, creating unity, making everyone believe sufficiently in the mission to risk themselves for it. He positions himself prominently at the front, not necessarily engaging in direct combat, but being visibly seen as engaged and serving as the symbol that maintains morale at elevated levels. The army fights for him because they believe he represents something worthy of that sacrifice. Remove the alpha's ability to command others, and you eliminate his primary weapon. But the Sigma male never constructs an army initially, not because he lacks that capability, because armies operate slowly. They require complex logistics, supply chain management, communication networks, and consensus building. You cannot redirect an army instantaneously. You cannot send it through pathways too narrow for formation movements. You cannot keep it hidden when 1,000 individuals are moving through observable countryside. Armies achieve victory through overwhelming force. The Sigma male wins through surgical precision. He's the sniper who eliminates the enemy commander from a mile's distance, the cyber expert who shuts down critical infrastructure before battle even commences, the negotiator who converts the enemy's allies against them without a single shot being fired. He doesn't win by overpowering opposition forces, he wins by identifying the single pressure point that collapses the entire structure. And he can accomplish that alone because he's not attempting to occupy territory, he's simply trying to achieve the specific objective. It's the difference between playing chess and executing an assassination. The alpha male is playing chess, moving pieces strategically, controlling territory, building positional advantages. The Sigma male is simply removing the king from the board entirely. Game concluded. Nobody remembers the elegant strategic maneuvers, they simply remember that one side won and the other lost. And winning alone means you don't have to share the victory or explain your methodology. You just proceed to the next conflict.
The alpha collects followers. The Sigma collects skills. A king measures his power in subjects. How many people kneel when he enters the chamber? How large is his military force? How extensively does his kingdom reach? The greater the number of people under his rule, the more powerful he becomes. This explains why alpha males focus intensely on building networks, collecting contacts, and expanding their influence, because people themselves are the currency of hierarchical power. Observe an alpha male at social gatherings. He's working the entire room, meeting every person, ensuring everyone learns his name. He's not necessarily enjoying these interactions personally. He's making investments because each person he connects with represents potential leverage. Someone who might provide utility later. Someone who might grant access to opportunities. Someone who expands his effective reach. He's building an empire, one handshake at a time. The Sigma male operates on an entirely different calculation system. Not because he's antisocial by nature, but because he's performing different mathematics. For him, power isn't about how many people you can mobilize. It's about how much you can accomplish without needing to mobilize anyone at all. Instead of building a network of people who owe him favors, he builds a comprehensive toolkit of capabilities that make him fundamentally self-sufficient. He learns to code, to analyze data, to build systems, to repair things, and to negotiate effectively. Each acquired skill reduces his dependence on others. Each capability makes him more autonomous. He's not networking at conferences, he's mastering skills that eliminate his need to network. Because skills don't need management. They don't betray you. They don't demand your attention when you're trying to focus on important work. They just exist quietly, making you increasingly capable until circumstances require them. When you collect followers, you cannot change direction without extensive explanation and justification, and you definitely cannot disappear when everyone knows your name and face. Skills don't require being managed or explained to. They don't betray confidences. They don't demand your attention. When you need to concentrate, they simply remain available, quietly increasing your capabilities until you need to deploy them. Think about it like resource management in a strategy game. The alpha male is constructing farms and recruiting villagers. More population, more workers, more production capacity. But all of it requires feeding, protection, and coordination. The Sigma male is researching technological upgrades. Each advancement makes his single unit more powerful. He doesn't need an army, he just needs the capability to accomplish 10 things that other people require teams for. And when he achieves that, he possesses power without the overhead costs. The Alpha needs enemies to define himself. The Sigma needs solitude. A monarch without enemies is simply a man sitting in an ornate chair, because kingship is fundamentally relational. You're only the ruler if there's someone to rule over, someone to protect your people from, and someone to conquer. Enemies provide the king with purpose. They justify the crown's existence. They're the reason the kingdom requires a strong leader. Without threats, the king becomes irrelevant to the social structure. This explains why alpha males always seem engaged in conflict with someone. It's not that they're naturally combative by temperament, it's that conflict confirms their position. When a rival exists, the alpha gets to prove his worth by defeating them. His followers rally around him. His authority strengthens through demonstration. The enemy isn't merely an obstacle to overcome. The enemy is the mirror that shows the alpha who he is. Without that mirror, his identity becomes unclear and unfocused. The Sigma male has zero interest in enemies, not because he's afraid of conflict, but because enemies are distractions from actual objectives. They pull your focus away from what matters. They force you to react instead of act according to your own agenda. They trap you in a game you might not even want to play. The Sigma male would rather simply remove himself from the board entirely than spend energy fighting battles that don't serve his actual goals. What the Sigma male genuinely needs is solitude, not loneliness, but solitude. The difference matters profoundly. Loneliness is unwanted isolation. Solitude is a space you deliberately choose. And in that chosen space, the Sigma male does his most effective thinking. He's not defining himself in opposition to anyone. He's defining himself by his own internal metrics. What does he genuinely value? What does he want to build? What problems genuinely interest him? None of those questions requires an enemy. They just require quiet space for reflection. Think of the alpha male as a sword being sharpened against a whetstone. The stone is the enemy. The friction is the conflict. The sharpening is the growth that results. But the Sigma male is water carving through rock. There's no enemy. There's no fight. Just patient, persistent pressure applied over an extended time, and eventually the canyon forms. Not because water competed with rock, but because water just kept being water long enough that rock had to yield to its nature.
The alpha plays the game better. The Sigma changes the rules. Every kingdom operates according to established rules, succession laws, social hierarchies, codes of conduct, and the alpha male has mastered them all comprehensively. He knows how to climb the ranks, how to form strategic alliances, how to leverage favors, and how to play politics effectively. He spent years learning the game's intricacies, and he executes better than almost anyone. That's how he obtained the crown, by being the best player in a game everyone else is also playing. And there's genuine skill in that accomplishment, understanding complex social dynamics, reading power structures accurately, knowing when to push and when to yield strategically. The alpha male isn't unintelligent. He's highly strategic. He sees the board clearly, understands the pieces, and plays 10 moves ahead. He wins because he's exceptional at playing by the established rules. The Sigma male looks at those same rules and thinks, why are these the rules? Who decided this is how it works? And more importantly, what happens if I just ignore them?
because rules only possess power if you agree to play, and the Sigma male never agreed to participate. He's not trying to climb the hierarchy, he's questioning whether the hierarchy needs to exist at all, at least for him personally. This explains why Sigma males end up in positions that don't fit traditional structures. Freelancers who don't have bosses, entrepreneurs who build businesses that don't follow industry standards, researchers who ask questions their fields consider inappropriate or outside boundaries. They're not rebelling for rebellion's sake. They're simply refusing to accept constraints they didn't choose. And that refusal creates new possibilities that the game players never see because they're too busy playing. Imagine a race where everyone's running the track. The alpha male is in first place, he's faster, stronger, better trained. He's going to win by the rules of the race. But the Sigma male isn't on the track, he's in the parking lot building a motorcycle. The race organizers don't even know what to do with that. It's not cheating because he's not in the race, but he's going to reach the finish line anyway, just not by their rules. And when he does, the entire structure of the race becomes questionable. The alpha needs validation, the Sigma needs results. The crown means nothing if nobody acknowledges it. A king standing alone in an empty throne room isn't really a king. He's just a man sitting in a chair wearing a hat. The power comes from recognition, from people bowing, from the court acknowledging his authority. This is why validation matters so intensely to alpha males. It's not insecurity in the pathological sense. It's the fundamental mechanism of their power. If people stop validating the alpha's position, the position dissolves. So the alpha male seeks feedback constantly. Did that speech land effectively? Are people following? Is his authority being respected? He needs to know that his performance is working, that his position remains secure, and that people still see him as the leader. It's genuinely exhausting, because validation is a renewable resource that constantly needs replenishing. One mistake and the court starts whispering. One moment of weakness and challengers appear. The alpha is always on stage, always performing, always needing the audience to applaud. The Sigma male doesn't have an audience, and he doesn't want one because external validation is inherently unstable. It fluctuates based on other people's moods, perceptions, political considerations, things outside your control. The Sigma male measures success differently. Did the thing work? Did he achieve the objective? Did the problem get solved? Those are yes or no questions, binary, clean, no interpretation required. When a Sigma male builds something and it functions as intended, that's the validation. The code runs without errors, the structure stands under load, and the analysis predicts the outcome accurately. Reality is the feedback mechanism, not people's opinions about reality. Reality itself. And reality doesn't care about your feelings or your reputation or your popularity. It just is. If your solution works in reality, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that clarity is addictive once you experience it. It's like the difference between a chef who cooks for critics versus a chef who cooks for hunger. The first chef needs the reviews, the stars, and the acclaim. His success is measured by what other people say about his food. The second chef just needs the food to satisfy hunger. If people eat and they're no longer hungry, the food worked. That's the only metric that matters. Everything else is noise.
The alpha wants to be remembered as a king. The Sigma doesn't care about being remembered. Legacy is everything to a king. He builds monuments, names cities after himself, commissions paintings, and writes his history. Because what's the point of being king if nobody remembers you were king? The crown is temporary. You wear it for a lifetime. But the legacy is permanent. It's the only thing that survives death. So the alpha male spends enormous energy crafting how he'll be remembered. This is why alpha males care so intensely about perception, about their reputation, about the narrative. They're not just living their lives, they're writing the story that will be told about them after they're gone. Every decision is partly about the present and partly about how it will look in retrospect. Will this make me look strong, wise, and powerful? Will people tell stories about this moment? The alpha is always playing to future audiences who don't yet exist. The Sigma male has no interest in legacy, not because he's nihilistic about existence, but because he's present-focused. He's not building for people who aren't born yet. He's solving problems that exist right now. And when he's dead, he'll be dead. What people say about him then won't matter because he won't be there to hear it. So why spend living energy on posthumous reputation? This is the ultimate freedom. When you don't care about being remembered, you can do anything. You can fail spectacularly, and it doesn't matter because there's no historical record to protect. You can succeed quite well, and it doesn't matter because you're not building a monument. You can change your mind completely, and it doesn't matter because you're not defending a consistent narrative. You just get to exist, to work, to solve problems, to live without the weight of legacy crushing every decision. The alpha male is carving his face into a mountain. The Sigma male is a river that shaped the valley. In 1,000 years, people will see the face and know someone put it there. They'll remember the king. But they'll walk through the valley never knowing a river created it. They'll think it was always that way, natural, inevitable. And the Sigma male would prefer it that way because the valley serves its purpose whether anyone knows how it formed or not. So if alpha males are kings, then what are Sigma males? They're the ones who never needed kingdoms in the first place. They're not competing for thrones because thrones come with chains. They're not building armies because armies must be managed and kept loyal. And they're not seeking crowns because crowns are cages. The alpha male needs the kingdom to be king. The Sigma male just needs himself to be free. And that difference isn't about bigger or worse. It's about different operating systems, different goals, and different definitions of power. The alpha's power is social, collective, and structural. The Sigma's power is individual, internal, and portable. Both are real. Both work, but only one requires a kingdom, and the other one is perfectly fine without it. If you're still engaged with this analysis, I'm genuinely curious about something. Which part of this breakdown made the hierarchy finally make sense to you? Share your perspective in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like if this clarified something meaningful for you. And if you haven't joined already, hit subscribe. You'll become part of the largest Sigma-focused community on the platform. Thanks for your time and attention. The next video on your screen will take you further into this exploration.